In our first lesson about the ancient Greek civilization, we talked about what the word civilization means. A civilization is a group of people living together in a well-organized way. In the Greek civilization, people lived in city-states. A city-state is an independent city and the surrounding area that it controls. We are learning about all of the different key components of the ancient Greek civilization. We already talked about jobs yesterday. Today we're going to talk about religion. Remember, a religion is a set of beliefs and practices. Religion in ancient times often developed as a way to explain how things came to be or how things happen in nature, such as thunder and lightning, the tides of the ocean, or the seasons. Like the Mesopotamians, Egyptians, and the people of other ancient civilizations, the ancient Greeks believed in beings called gods and goddesses. Gods are male beings, and goddesses are female beings. The Greeks believed that the most powerful gods and goddesses lived in a palace on the very top of Mount Olympus, the highest mountain in Greece. The ancient Greeks believed that these gods and goddesses were ruled by a king named Zeus and a queen named Hera, and that they each had a different power or skill that explained how something came to be or how something happened in nature. These gods and goddesses were also believed to be immortal or able to live forever. Messenger. A messenger is someone who carries messages and does other errands or jobs. For example, the class messenger passed on a very important message from the teacher to the front office. Delightfully, with great enjoyment or pleasure. Longingly, with great longing or desire. Santiago looked longingly in the pet store window, daydreaming about owning a puppy someday. Massive. Massive means very large, heavy, and solid. The pyramids in ancient Egypt were built with massive stones. Summoned. If you are summoned, you are called forth or requested to come to a specific place. The principal summoned all of the students to the auditorium for a special announcement. Have you ever summoned someone or been summoned by someone? The day began delightfully, of course. Every day began delightfully on Mount Olympus, for it was the home of the gods. Because these gods called Mount Olympus their home, they were called the Olympian gods. Sometimes they enjoyed roaming on Earth, which is where the gods could be found at this moment, all except Hermes and Apollo. Hermes, messenger of the gods and son of Zeus, appeared in an instant at the side of his brother Apollo. Hermes was wearing his famous winged sandals and winged helmet, and he carried a small wooden stick, or baton, with wings on either side. All of these extra wings gave Hermes even greater speed than he already possessed. Because he was constantly flitting here or there, that means that he was moving lightly and quickly, carrying news among the gods, and leading lost travelers back in the right direction, Hermes needed all the speed he could get. When he was moving his fastest, it always seemed as if, whoosh, he just appeared out of nowhere. Apollo, the god of music and poetry, was startled when Hermes suddenly appeared, even though he should have been used to it by now. "Do you have to pop up like that?" he protested. "I was just composing the most wonderful song on my harp, and you have made me forget where I was in the melody." If Apollo is composing a song, that means that he is writing a song or creating a song. "So sorry," Hermes exclaimed. although he was secretly pleased, for he was a bit of a trickster. Hermes went on, "But soon you will have more of an audience, for our father Zeus has summoned us all here to the great hall at once." Glancing around nervously, he added quietly, "And you know how he can be when he is kept waiting. Remember, Zeus is the king of the gods and goddesses." Hermes looked at the harp he had given to Apollo long ago, made from the shell of a large tortoise, with strange strings stretched across it. "Still, I can stay for a moment if you would be kind enough to play whatever you were working on." He sat down on a thick cushion on the floor. Apollo smiled, and because he was also the god of light, his smile could truly light up a room. "I would be delighted," he said, and his fingers ran so swiftly across the harp strings that they seemed almost liquid. As always, the song was so beautiful that anyone listening would think it must be the best song that could ever be played. That is, until Apollo played the next one. Hermes actually sat unmoving, which was quite rare for him, and at the end of the song he sighed. Then he was gone, his parting thank you hanging in the air. Apollo thought, "That boy must learn to slow down." Hermes had already left behind the high, cloud-covered mountain, and he was settling down into a lush, green forest below. Here, Hermes was especially alert, for he was searching for the greatest of hunters, or rather, huntresses. His sister, the goddess Artemis. If anything could travel as quickly as Hermes, it would be one of Artemis's arrows, for she was the goddess of hunting, wilderness, and animals. Hermes could hear the crashing and crackling of branches as something large broke through the trees nearby. Suddenly, a great antlered stag, or male deer, burst from the bushes not 5 feet from Hermes, panic in its eyes as it saw him. Turning, the stag disappeared from the little clearing as suddenly as it had arrived. Hermes had only enough time to think, "How graceful," when 2 huge hounds leapt from the bushes, ready to follow the stag. Hermes simply held up his wooden baton, and the 2 dogs stopped at once, lying down before him, panting. A moment later their mistress, Artemis, appeared. Disappointment showed on the goddess's face at losing the deer she had been hunting. At such moments, Artemis could be cruel, but when she saw Hermes, she smiled, for she was very fond of him. I wondered why the hounds had stopped," she said. "I'm afraid that you will have to stop also," Hermes replied. "Our father Zeus has summoned us to come to Mount Olympus as quickly as possible." Remember, summoned means that he's asked them to go to a specific place. At once, Artemis placed the arrow she had been holding into the quiver she wore over her shoulder. "I will leave right away," she said, but as Hermes flew off again, he saw her looking longingly at the bushes where the deer had disappeared. Why do you think she's looking longingly at the bushes? Probably because she wants to catch that deer, huh? A minute later, the messenger god hovered in midair, high above the sea that surrounded Greece, and which held hundreds of islands of all sizes. With eyes as sharp as one of Artemis's arrows, Hermes shot through the ocean waves. Weaving among a dozen dancing dolphins, he came to rest next to the massive shoulders of his uncle Poseidon, the god of the seas and of all that crosses the seas. Poseidon's long white beard moved like sea foam in the water as he turned and spoke. "Hermes, you are welcome here," he boomed out in a mighty voice. And Hermes remembered that Poseidon, brother of Zeus, could make the earth shake, for he was also the god of earthquakes. Pointing his great trident at a 3-pointed pitchfork, which he sometimes used to stir up the waves of the sea, the gods said to Hermes, "Watch with me." So the two gods watched as the dolphins swam in smooth, wide figure eights, and massive whales rose up from the depths to swim through the loops of the dolphins' design. When the show was over, 100 octopi jetted in front of the whales and dolphins, shooting black ink from their bellies as a sort of closing theater curtain to end the performance. Octopi is plural for octopus. One octopus, many octopi. Poseidon roared with laughter at this surprise ending. Then, turning to Hermes, he asked, "What brings you here, nephew?" Hermes replied, "Zeus asks you to come with all speed to Mount Olympus." "I shall go at once," he said. But before he set out to see his brother, Poseidon took the time to thank the dolphins, whales, and octopi for their wonderful performance. When he finished, Hermes was already gone. It is wonderful how he does that, Poseidon thought. In the sky high above him, Hermes was already seeking out another of the gods. Suddenly, a lightning bolt split the air only 10 feet from the messenger god. Who do you think the god of lightning is? This bolt of lightning was followed by a deafening crash of thunder. Zeus was getting impatient. Hermes called upward, "I am moving as quickly as I can, my lord." The messenger of the gods hurried on his way. All right, my friends, we're going to stop there today, and we're going to find out what happens in the rest of the story in our next lesson. All right, my friends, today we learned about ancient Greek religion. I've got a couple questions about ancient Greek religion for you. My first question is, where did the ancient Greeks believe that the gods and goddesses lived? You've got it. They believed that they lived in a palace on top of the highest mountain in Greece, Mount Olympus. I want you to turn and tell your neighbor or cousin or whoever's helping you today about some of the gods and goddesses that we read about today. Tell them who you remember and what you remember about them. Who are some of the gods and goddesses we learned about today? There are a lot that you could have talked about with whoever is helping you today. We talked about Hermes, who is a messenger god. We talked about Apollo, the god of music, light, and poetry. We talked about Artemis, the goddess of hunting, wilderness, and animals. We talked about Poseidon, who is the god of the sea and can create earthquakes. We talked about Zeus, who is the king of the gods and the god of lightning. How would you describe, one of the first gods that I listed was Hermes. How would you describe Hermes? Hermes was who our story was about today. How would you describe him? Was Hermes very serious? No, he was pretty playful, I think. He was very fast. He didn't move super slow like a turtle. He moved very, very fast, like the Flash. He was very helpful, too. He was doing a lot of work to help. What message was he trying to deliver in this story? What message was he trying to deliver? He was telling all of the other gods and goddesses that Zeus had summoned them to Mount Olympus. We talked about how some of the powers of the different gods and goddesses explain how things happen in nature. The ancient Greeks believed that the powers of the gods and goddesses explained certain things in nature. What's an example of that?
What's an example of how a god or goddess's powers create change in nature? One thing that we talked about was how Poseidon can create earthquakes. We also talked about how Zeus creates lightning and thunder. All right, my friends. My last question. I want you to work with whoever is there helping you. I want you to turn to them. I want you to pick one god or goddess from our story today. And I don't want you to tell them who you chose. I want to see if they can guess. I want you to describe that god or goddess, and I want you to see if they can guess who you chose. All right, my friends. We are going to add to our civilization chart today. We are going to add this picture of all of the gods and goddesses of Mount Olympus that we talked about today. We are going to add this picture under our religion section. All right, my friends, go ahead and open up the first PDF attached to this assignment. We're going to take some notes about religion too. There are two things you'll need to do on this assignment. The first one, we're going to take some notes about things that we want to remember about religion in ancient Greece. Before you start that assignment, friends, I forgot a card. I forgot to one of our cards that we're going to put under religion, and that is this picture right here. This is a picture of Mount Olympus. This is what it looks like in real life. I'm going to put that under religion also, so we remember where the Greeks believed that their gods and goddesses lived. I'm going to put this above my picture of the gods and goddesses. We haven't learned about all of the gods and goddesses in this picture yet. We'll talk about them in our next lesson. Go ahead and start on those assignments now. I'm going to jump over to my computer so I can show you what they'll look like.
All right, when you have that PDF open, it should look like this. Just like we did with our jobs, we're going to take some notes about what we learned about ancient Greek religion today. In ancient Greece, did they believe in just one god? No. Like we learned in Hinduism, the ancient Greeks believed in many gods or goddesses. That's an important point that I want to make note of. The ancient Greeks believed in many gods and goddesses. Go ahead and fill out your notes along with me. If there are extra notes or things that you think are important and want to remember that I didn't write, go ahead and add them. These notes are to help you remember anything that you think is important or anything that we need to remember. Let's talk about some of the gods and goddesses that we learned about today. One of the first ones that we talked about was Zeus. What was Zeus the god of? Zeus was the god of lightning and the king of all gods. We also talked about a god named Hermes. Hermes was a messenger god. In our story, Hermes was sent to round up all of the other gods and goddesses because Zeus had summoned them to Mount Olympus. And I'm actually going to add that back here at the top. Mount Olympus was believed to be the home of the gods. That's an important thing for us to remember too. Hermes was a messenger god. The first god that Hermes approached in his search for all of the other gods and goddesses was Apollo. What was Apollo the god of? Right. Apollo was the god of music, poetry, and light. After Hermes found Apollo, he found Apollo's twin sister named Artemis. Artemis was the goddess. Remember, if it's a male, we use the term god. If they are female, we use goddess. Artemis was the goddess of animals, the wilderness, and hunting. Artemis is a huntress or a female hunter. So Zeus, who is the king of all gods, sent Hermes, his son and a messenger god, to track down all of the other gods to Mount Olympus, where the gods lived. Hermes first found Apollo, and then he found Apollo's twin sister Artemis. Next, Hermes found his uncle, Poseidon. Poseidon is Zeus's brother, and what is Poseidon the god of? Right, Poseidon is the god of the sea, all that travel on the sea, and he's also the god of earthquakes. Poseidon can create earthquakes. All right, my friends, those are the only gods that we learned about so far. Tomorrow, we'll find out what happens next in Hermes' journey, and we'll add a couple more gods to our list. We'll add more to this list. When you are done, when you have put in any important information that you think you would like to remember or will need to remember about religion in ancient Greece, what we've learned so far, go ahead and turn this in, and you are done for today. When you are done for today, I want you to retell what happened in our story to whoever is there helping you. So after you've turned this in and you're done, I want you to turn to whoever's helping you and retell the story of the Olympian gods and goddesses using the words first, next, then, and finally. When we use those words, it helps us remember what order things happened in. So tell whoever's helping you what happened first, what happened next, what happened then, and then finally what happened at the end.